Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys Football. We just got done finishing up the first game of the 2022 college football season. Absolutely insane. Nebraska, unfortunately, is going to be Nebraska. We got a lot to talk about. Before we do, just want to say thank you guys for all the support you guys have shown the channel, especially the Cornhusker fans. I know, obviously, very, very tough afternoon for you guys, but the support you guys have shown is absolutely awesome. Love talking ball with you guys. Dylan, I'm going to kick it off to you. How are we feeling?
Yeah, if the seat wasn't hot enough for Scott Frost, it just got turned up another level. I mean, that is beyond disappointing of a result for Nebraska. I think everybody expected them to kind of pace this team. I think most people thought easy 2-touchdown win. Obviously, Vegas, for the most part, thought that. And to lose in that way, making the mistakes they made with just so disappointing, so very Nebraska.
Casey Thompson looked so good in that offense with Mark Whipple. The offense and the playmakers like Trey Palmer that we were talking about all offseason looked the part the first couple of drives. And then they just kind of completely fell in a rut and couldn't score in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, it's inexcusable. I don't know what to think. It's like the same things that happened last year happen again. Like the picks, and those weren't even really Casey Thompson's fault for the most part. It's like tip balls, Oliver Martin. He's got to catch that football. It's right in his hands. I think the Volacek injury hurt very bad.
He's really good, by the way. Hopefully he can get healthy because he is an absolute stud. The thing I was most disappointed with was how poorly they looked in both sides of the trenches. I mean, Northwestern was running the ball on them pretty consistently. Northwestern wasn't doing anything special. I think Ryan Helinski played a very good game. But this wasn't an overcomplicated, schemed-up game from Northwestern. They pretty much had whatever they wanted between the tackles. And on the other side of the ball, Northwestern blitzed one time. But Casey Thompson probably got hit 10. They could not pass protect. They couldn't stop the run. And that is just not a good recipe to win college football games.
Yeah, and I didn't think we thought either side of the trenches was going to be great. But to see them get outplayed the way they did, and I think even more so, those linebackers, like you thought those were your kind of money makers on your defense, and they just looked really, really weak. Both of them, Reimer and Heinrich, just not even close to the standard that I think those two should be playing to, and just so disappointing to see that. I mean, the defense, what happened? I don't know. I'd be so.
Is this Scott Frost? I mean, I think we can agree it's looking like it might be his last year in Lincoln. Does he get fired on the runway here?
If they don't, I guess he can save his job at Oklahoma. Frankly, if they can go beat Oklahoma, I think you can look past this win. I know they're going to win the next two games almost assuredly. Yeah. Obviously, playing weaker teams. Maybe you can't have full go wins with Nebraska. You can't ever know for sure. But if he can beat Oklahoma, but if they're not competitive and they get blown out, I don't really know how he's going to revive his season. I mean, this is he was already kind of on his last legs. They obviously cut his pay. He fired all his coordinators. And
another thing that I was just so disappointed with was just the inability to run the football. Like last year when they played Northwestern, they ran for over 400 yards. Outside of that one run by Anthony Grant, who looked very good. I thought if there was some good parts about this game, I thought Anthony Grant looked very good, the JUCO transfer. Outside of that one run, I mean, Jaquez Yant looked really bad. Averaged 2.5 yards a carry. Couldn't even punch it in on the goal line, really. Trey Palmer, I wish that when they got their playmakers in space more, that's when things worked for Nebraska. And when you're playing a team like Northwestern who they want to play you in a phone booth. They want to be physical. They don't necessarily have the athletes and speed to get out to the perimeter, but they want to play you into uptight. And they just didn't. I mean, Trey Palmer got an end around that worked, and they went back to it, and it didn't work. But I feel like they needed to get their players outside the tackle box and let them cook, and they just couldn't dial it.
Could they not ripped out a few more bubble screens? Because, that was another part of the offense that when they went to it, worked really well. And you're right. They played how Northwestern wants them to play. Everything was over the middle. And even in the run game, it was mostly between the tackles, and they just were getting beaten down up front. They couldn't move the Northwestern players around, and It's just like, I don't know.
Looking at Northwestern, Dill. Looking at Northwestern, I think we might have been. I was very low on Northwestern. You look at how they looked last year. The quarterback roulette. None of the quarterbacks really excited me. Evan Hull, I knew was a good player. You saw it last year, but he looked awesome. Cam Porter coming back from the injury looked awesome. I was really surprised that they have some wide receivers who can make some noise. I mean, Malik Washington was very, very good, and then Donnie Navarro, excuse me. He looks like a guy that can make some plays for Northwestern. This is a team that it's never flashy under Pat Fitzgerald, but this was a damn good performance for them.
And they're back to doing what they do. They're playing really good on both fronts, which is probably the most important thing for Northwestern to do. And I think they have a quarterback now who is just going to be steady. I think like Brock Heward was getting a little excited on what Helsinki was doing because it wasn't like he was doing anything wildly impressive, but he was being ultra solid. Just that, and that's all Northwestern kind of needs from him. They just don't need him to put the ball in harm's way. They don't need him to be the playmaker. That's frankly what those two running backs are going to do because they're both really good. But I don't know.
I thought they should have looked to Helsinki cook a little bit more. I mean, he wasn't really putting the ball in harm's way. He was being very accurate for the most part. And then at a certain point, they just started running the ball. I mean, you could run the ball in Nebraska. They were allowing you to. But Ryan Helsinki was a bright, pleasant surprise for Northwestern fans. And if Northwestern wants to kind of continue that pattern of having a down year, then having a really good year, they need Ryan Helsinki to play well. They need their running backs to play well. And they're back to when Northwestern's good. They're physical on both sides of football. Northwestern looks like they can be a good team in the Big West this year, Big Time West this year.
And the last thing I kind of want to talk about is what do you think about Scott Frost doing that little onside kick after it looked like Nebraska had snatched the momentum, and then he rolls that? I know you kind of feel different, but I just can't. I really dislike that. I don't. That's what Northwestern should have maybe tried at some point. That's what the underdog should be doing. Not when you were in a team that looked like you were kind of taking control of the football game, and then you gave all the momentum right back with like a little trick that was never.
That's one of those plays that I just didn't like the spot. Like you're up 11, you just had a massive fumble recovery, then you score a touchdown. Let's keep that momentum going. Don't give them a chance to get the momentum back. You already have the momentum. That's a play when you need some momentum. That's when you hit it. You don't hit it when you're scored 11 unanswered and you're winning by 11. You've scored 14 unanswered. You're up by 11. You try the onside kick. It's one of those things that if it works, you look like a genius, and if it doesn't, you look like an idiot. And Scott Frost, quite frankly, looks like an idiot for trying to pull that card.
Yeah, and then the special teams coming back to bite Nebraska. It just that felt like what Nebraska's been doing. It just you're waiting for the light to switch and them to start winning these games and being the team that they have the talent to be, because this is a talented team. I think if you watched it, you kind of felt like Nebraska was the better team for the most part. Like
besides the trenches.
But the trenches, that's Nebraska's more talented on the edge and certainly like secondary, all that. But I might be like not giving enough credit to how bad they are because there's some problems on those lines.
Yeah, it's just, again, to wrap up, extremely disappointing. As college football fans, like I do root for Nebraska. I like the fans, like talking Nebraska football. I was hoping they would win, but this was a great first game of the college football season. I hope we get more games like this again. Appreciate you guys checking us out as usual. If you like the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We appreciate y'all, and we'll talk to y'all later.